Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I'm going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Covert's going to lead us in the invocation. If you'll stand with me. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Let us pray. Father, we just come before you tonight asking for your wisdom and your guidance as we make decisions for our city. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us, Lord. We thank you most for your Son. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for our September 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. Paul?
Gary Compton.
Here.
Roy Covert.
Here.
James Davis.
Here.
Phoebe Haney.
Here.
Shannon Mueller.
Here.
Peyton Parker.
Here.
Kevin Parsley.
Here.
Ben Peters. Dale Tyler.
Here.
All right. Approval of the minutes. Any questions?
A motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Haney.
Second.
Second by Mr. Covert. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And all right, there are a couple of items that we will not hear this evening. The first item, W19-02, Dakota Riggins, that has been tabled. There is also a large-scale development, L19-19 Patent Industrial Park, that has been tabled per staff. And a waiver, Marcy Kennard, 8159 East Brown Road, waiver for sidewalk requirements. That is also been tabled. So if you're here for any of those will not be heard this evening. First item on tabled items that we had from last month, B19-41, Larry Gibson, 511 Kansas, variance for deviation in lot size, presented by Larry Gibson.
Good evening. We met in the meeting a couple of weeks ago. What do you call it? Work session with you guys a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this deal. We haven't. We don't have any of the changed plans. We talked about the sidewalk some, but the crux of what we're here to ask for is that, as I understand it, is that the city calls for 70-foot frontage to build a duplex on. What we have is almost 60. Well, we have 64 and a quarter on one lot, and 64 and 2/3 on another lot. So we're approximately 5.5, 6 feet short of the width required. And we're approximately 1,800 square feet of the total bulk area of land required to build these two duplexes on. The city standard being 10,500 for a total of 21,000. We're just 1,796 square feet short of that total. We're here to ask if we could get those approved and passed along to the city council, I guess, where we can. Is that the way it works, Patsy? Is that not the way it works? It does not have to go to council. Well, even better.
You've gotten it done.
Very good. Okay. Well, that's what we're here to ask for.
Staff comments?
Okay, the lot that's between the duplex on the corner and these two that you want to do is there's going to be a single-family dwelling staying there. This existing one.
Yes, ma'am.
We talked about not coming back in the future and asking for that to change to a duplex with a variance for that one too. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, that house has got a very long, barring any catastrophic weather, it's got a very long line.
Okay. Just making sure that gets into the record.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I would add that I think probably one of the things you're going to ask is that we're going to put 50 foot of sidewalk in front of that particular house, and we are.
I just assumed you weren't going to ask for that. That was going to be done, correct?
Well, right.
Okay.
We talked about it before. That's what we're going to do that.
Okay, so this would be a lot width variance and a bulk area variance for both of those to what's shown on that drawing that's up there and the one we talked about at planning work session 2.
Anything else? Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission. This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Variance passes 9-0.
Thank you very much. So what's left now is to go go get a building permit, correct?
We'll send the information over to the building inspection department so that they'll know that the variance has been granted. And Ed or somebody's here tonight from them, they heard it too, so.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I should have said this beforehand. Is there anything that would prevent us from starting one of these before the other? You know, we have to raise one particular building that's on part of this property before we can actually start, but we've got enough bulk area to do it, to start one.
You will have to work with the building inspection department to.
Very good, very good, thank you.
All right. Next item. We have two on here. We have a conditional use and a rezoning as well. We'll do the rezoning first, R 19-28, Frankie Murray Baker Revocable Trust, 2587 East Emma Avenue from A1 to SF2. And there was also going to be, a lot split that we're doing. And that, yes. And that'll be presented by Cindy Fagan.
It's Frankie Barker, but anyway.
It says Frankie Marie, is it Barker, not Baker?
Barker Revocable Trust.
Sorry.
And my name is spelled wrong on there too, if that matters. Anyway, why we're here is we have a little over 6 acres there. I want to split 1 acre and the house off to keep for myself, and we want to sell the rest of the property.
Okay. So basically, we're rezoning this entire piece of property from A1 to SF2. And if that's approved, then the lot split, the tandem lot split would be allowed, the house would be split off by itself, and then there would be an access to the remaining properties.
Any questions or comments from the audience?
I am her granddaughter, by the way.
We have all the paperwork that says you're the person who can do that.
Any questions or comments? It's to the planning commission?
You got a question, Chairman?
I'm sorry. If you can state your name and address, please.
Eddie Donaldson, 2625 East Emma. Live next door to the property, and the property runs behind my house.
No. This property doesn't.
This property, so you're
No.
just doing the house?
The house.
Look
on
at the drawing up
west side.
here. So you can see it's the property comes straight down your property line on the west side, down to a fence on the south. It doesn't come behind your house at all.
It's not
Okay,
gonna be anything
the only
to do
thing
with
I was
that.
concerned about, duplexes, or something like that going in back there, and
And they're rezoning it for single family only, not duplexes.
I didn't understand you, ma'am.
They're rezoning it for single family homes only, not duplexes.
Okay, all right, thank
That
you.
doesn't mean that if it gets rezoned again, you'll be notified again as adjacent property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote on the rezoning by Mrs. Haney.
Over.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Rezoning passes 9-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance and it goes to council on the 24th of September.
And then we have the conditional use for tandem lot split.
Needs a call for the vote.
Yep.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
David.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Conditional use passes 9-0.
That also will go to the council on September the 24th, and staff will prepare the resolution for that one, too.
So we need to come back on the 24th.
I'll make the presentation at council meeting, but you need to be here in case there's any questions. Then if it's approved that night, then you have to follow through with the paperwork and have it filed so that you can transfer the title.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
for your-
Next item, LS 19-29, Dream Structures LLC, south side of Morse Avenue, north of County Line, presented by Steve Fisher.
This is a lot split that was actually in the previous meeting last month, and we needed to dedicate that little section. It's kind of hard to see up there, but behind the property where the septic field is an easement that's dedicated to this piece that we're splitting off, and then at such time that we are able to add sewer to the entire property, then that utility easement would go away, and that's what's stated there.
Okay, that utility easement that you're dedicating, is it actually in Bethel Heights? Or is it on the Springdale portion?
I'm not positive.
Okay, there's where we get into an issue, because at one time we talked about you were going to petition to have that to come out of Bethel Heights and come into Springdale. Have you started any of that process?
Not yet.
Okay, so do you have anything from Bethel Heights that agrees to this too? And is the easement being granted to the adjacent property?
It's going to that.
unclear.
It's going to that property that we're doing a lot split. That dark line there.
Okay, and is that piece of property in Springdale or not?
It is.
The house is in Springdale,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
But where the easement's going on is not in Springdale, correct?
I am not sure. I am not sure.
And on this document, who is, it says C note one something, do you know who who that easement is being granted to? This is very unclear what we were trying to do with this. I couldn't figure out what we were trying to accomplish with this, with
Well,
that.
if you'll remember last month, we had a dedicated 15-foot utility easement
Right,
that we're going to actually connect this house to Springdale Sewer. Because there's a utility easement on the adjacent property.
but you can't connect to
To the
Springdale
west.
sewer if it's not in Springdale.
Well, all
Can't
of it-
connect sewer outside the city limits. And have you worked with Springdale Water on that?
There's already a utility easement there. No, I haven't put the line in yet. Have not done that yet. This was, according to the last meeting, I wasn't gonna make it anyway until we,
Well, I have on my notes that you were going to begin the annexation petition process so that we could have all that property in Springdale. And a question about the infrastructure and how that was going to be extended to, and you were gonna work with Springdale Water.
yeah, I have talked to Mike at Springdale Water. There is definitely, in the future, for that large parcel of ground, definitely we can connect sewer to there. We're able to connect sewer from the west side of the property to the west of us. There's a manhole there. We can bring the sewer over to our property line for sure, and we've dedicated a 15-foot easement there. But in the last meeting, that wasn't going to serve this project of the lot split because,
Okay,
I'm
was
actually not
the
sure why.
easement that is dedicated to Springdale Water outside the city limits of Springdale, right? Aaron, can you see, what does that note say about that septic easement? It's really hard to figure out what's on here. Doesn't it say C note one?
I can read you note 1. 0.023 acre temporary septic field area easement dedicated from tract 4A to tract 4B per this plat. Said easement to be abandoned upon any future development that allows connection to public sewer access.
Aaron, you want to address this a little bit?
Nope.
Yeah, so basically he's trying to do a temporary private easement. The city limits comes, there's a little square there. The house is in the city of Springdale, and the city limits follow a fence. So he's trying to dedicate a private easement on the Bethel Heights side for his septic area, I guess to get around the fact that we cannot connect because of the situation in Bethel Heights right now.
Is that where the existing septic system is?
That's what I think.
Well,
I mean,
that's how this house is being served today.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't have anything that shows that's where the septic system is now. Do you have something that shows that's where it is? Because it doesn't show up on your survey anywhere where that septic system is.
And That is something that we will require, because anything utility-wise, we don't allow across private property lines or even, we just don't do that, so.
So I don't know that there's much we can do on this tonight.
Well, I thought we were going to sit down and talk about this, and we got this revised drawing from your surveyor late last week, right?
Yep.
And it just had that little square put on it without any explanation that came with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it's here. The explanation is the easement that was, we kind of talked about this ahead of time, that if this would suffice getting our lot split done.
Okay, but,
In the near future, it'll be on sewer, but it's not tonight.
well, the near future means it has to come out of Bethel Heights before you can get hooked onto sewer.
Yeah, we're gonna bring all those acres into Springdale.
I mean, without getting these things answered, there's, and Sarah, I'm sure you agree on here that this is not advisable for us to do any type of vote on this, so.
We need to schedule a meeting and go over the details and, one, the survey needs to show that the septic field is actually in that easement, and I don't know that we've got anything that documents that.
Okay?
Have you seen anything that shows that's where it is?
I mean, this is 60 years old.
Right.
I'm sure we can
That's a problem
find
that we
some
had
type
too.
of record of it.
Yeah,
So who, organization, this at all?
well, they need to talk to Rick.
yeah, I mean, typically I would say, reach out to the county health for a permit if there was one. If it's too late, then, look for cleanouts and look for, sometimes you have to hire someone to actually find where the septic and leach fields are. I mean, I just did one out in the country the other day. It was 40 years old, so that's just how we have to do it. But the big question being brought to you is, this is what we as staff bring up to you guys, is how are these lots going to be served by sewer and water? And we do not see that we have a functional solution at this point, and that's one of our biggest concerns from a development standpoint. If the lot line was encompassing the full area of where we could find the septic field, we would still want to know where that septic field is, and still would not be agreeable to it at that point till we knew where it was. That's just our normal practice of doing things, so.
Do you have perk tests for the other lots that are being created that say they can have septic systems?
We're not gonna do septic systems.
Well,
We're gonna do
But
Springdale
as long
sewer.
as you're in Bethel Heights, you have to because you can't get Springdale sewer. So we either have to know that the
We're
lots.
we're gonna do a large scale with the 9 acres into Springdale. That'll be
Okay.
Springdale sewer, and it'll access from the point that I've described over and over there to the west.
But that portion is in Bethel Heights right now.
The property behind this house?
Where you're going to do the large scale, the property's actually in Bethel Heights, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to accept a large scale development plan for it until it comes out of Bethel Heights
I
into Springdale.
understand that. I'm not requesting that tonight.
But you're asking us for a track split.
It's already in Springdale. There's 2 houses on one parcel of ground in Springdale, which shouldn't have
But the
gotten to this
septic
point with
system-
it like that. I'm just asking to split
Yeah.
one of the houses off. It's being served for the last 60 years by a septic field right behind it. And I own all that land there, and I'm dedicating that portion until such time that it can be connected to the utility easement that's also drawn on there for the sewer line.
Okay, Sarah, this becomes an issue, a legal issue of how can we do this when, number one, we don't know if the easement area covers the septic tank to serve this house, and number two, it's not in Springdale.
I mean, I don't think we can. Bare minimum, there are too many questions, and if something arises where you make an assumption and then we have to correct it later, I mean, you're back at the drawing board all over again. But anytime that we're dealing with extra jurisdictional issues, you're gonna be in a better position if you know fully every single piece of information. I just don't think you have that right now.
So, I mean, we can't I mean, if we table it again, then it has to be completely redone on here. I mean, there's just not enough information here this evening. I mean, I don't feel comfortable as far as us moving forward with this. But think if there was any questions, it'd be a lot of confusion as far as where do we go forward with this. I mean, we don't know as far as exactly where septic is on this.
Well, I think you could table it, because this is not one, this is a lot split. This is not a variance, this is not anything like that that wouldn't allow us to table it one more time and see if we can get that kind of stuff. The information of where the septic system is important.
Okay,
To go to as far as all that information.
Well, he's gonna
How
have
is
to
it
either go to
get involved?
the county health department and see if they've got a permit for it, or you're gonna have to get somebody to go out there and locate it and put it, your surveyor can go out there and locate it, put it on the ground, so we know we're getting the right place.
right, I
Yeah,
agree,
yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah, okay.
What else needs to be done before the next meeting?
That's the critical piece that needs to be done in there, and it has to be documented that way, so.
And just for a matter of precedent from plats, from a legal land standpoint, we do not accept anything that says temporary, to be proposed, anything of nature, because this reflects the legal lay of the land and the respect to properties, lines, and everything else. So just make sure to work with Eric to take that language off of there or something of that
I mean,
nature.
it's a
Yeah.
septic field easement. Your understanding it's gonna go away, and then you vacate the easement when you get the sewer put into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it could be a long time before you get all this worked out, too. That's possible.
I think you have to plan out ahead as far as, I mean, the intent is for this to be done in order for this to be a large-scale development. I think we need to think through as far as, what does that mean as far as with the large scale as well? I don't know that you can have this as far as an isolated piece. You have to kind of do a bit of forward thinking on this, too.
It's a unique piece, there's no doubt about that. 2 jurisdictions, piece that's in the county.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Bethel Heights city limits, City of Springdale city limits, adjacent plats. We have a county portion that's under our planning jurisdiction. I mean, there's a plethora of challenges, so.
So is, Aaron, is that something that they can work through you as far as to help facilitate some of the?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to see ultimately, like Patsy was saying, an annexation happen first, because that just makes the dominoes kind of fall in place, and then work with Springdale Water on like getting adequate legal sewer connection for best development purposes. But I mean, it doesn't always work with the developer's timeline and how that works out. So, but that would be our recommendation: is start the annexation paperwork, call a meeting with. We can even, spearhead that. Have Springdale Sewer and Water come over and walk through their stuff that they're going to need to protect the city, and then move forward on that standpoint. We definitely do not feel comfortable from protecting the city in a real quick situation with lot splits and setting legal property lines, so.
Okay. So there's your go-to person.
okay.
on it. Okay. So we'll table this one at least until next month. It may be that's on there, so. All right, next item, C 19-15, Manolo Juarez and Beatriz Frere, RMH in A1 zone, presented by, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Arlie Juarez. Is this the one you said it might be
We have
tabled
not
on itself?
received anything back from them showing the location of their proposed mobile home they want to put on there, or manufactured home on there, or the septic system, and/or how they have access, so
Okay, so this
they
one
basically need to start over. if that's
has
what-
been tabled before, so this will have to go through the process again, so. All right. Next section, rezoning, R 19-25, Keith Hunter, 881 Oak Grove Road, from A1 to C2, presented by CEI Engineering and Associates.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Johnson, CEI Engineering. We're asking to rezone this property from 881 Oak Grove Road from A1 to C2, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Staff comments?
The comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Improve the city's economic base and tax structure through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations, assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size, encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the residents and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call the vote by Mrs. Haney.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Zoning passes 9-0.
Staff
Thank
will
you very
prepare
much.
the ordinance. It goes to council on September the 24th.
Thank you. Next item, R 19-26, Elmdale Baptist Church, 1705 Ross Avenue, 1707 Hudson, 1707 Rose Avenue, 1706 West Huntsville Avenue. It should have been both rows rather than,
They should be both Ross.
okay. From SF2 to P1, presented by Jan Thornton.
Yes, sir. My name is Jan Thornton. I'm a trustee at Elmdale Baptist Church, and this is Billy Chittister, our pastor. And we're just asking for these 3 houses that are among some other houses that we own to be recoded to SF2, or from SF2 to P1.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates low-density residential and neighborhood commercial. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Uses that commonly have moderate to large-scale assemblies of people such as churches, funeral homes, membership organizations, and other institutions should be properly located on adequate-sized parcels with sufficient space to accommodate the off-street parking and accessory needs. Such uses should be located so as to minimize any adverse or undue significant burden on adjacent or adjoining land uses as well as that portion of that street system. Y'all have been over the years putting together a pretty good sized footprint for the church for future development and future expansion as far as that's concerned. And are some of those houses being used as residential for visiting pastors or anything like that, or do you, classroom spaces?
No, none of them are being used for residential, and we've basically moved everything into the church at this point.
Okay, so what are you gonna use those structures for?
There is classroom spaces for some of the, our international groups.
Okay. But you're not changing any of the accesses or the driveways or anything like that? You park in the parking lot at the church that you have there, and all the accesses to those structures are through the backside or walking up to those?
Yes.
Okay.
Danny, go ahead.
Good evening. Danny Wright, Springdale Police Department. Just a reminder that if we do rezone to P1, it will exempt them from the noise ordinance. That probably is not going to be that applicable to the main church campus, but the address on Hudson might be.
Because it's adjacent to residential. What he's saying is the noise level needs to be kept at a lower level. You can't have loud music in any of those structures because they're adjacent to residential.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
I have a couple questions. I just think about this if it wasn't a church, if this was another, if it was a commercial business or, if it was another organization, at what point, these are single-family homes in a single-family neighborhood surrounded by other single-family homes, right? So my question is, at what point would I get the one that's on Huntsville, and I think, do you own 1704 and 1702 Huntsville?
Yes.
Between that and the church?
Yes, and then behind that, we own that corner that is adjacent to the ones on Ross Avenue.
They own the 500.
500?
Right.
Okay.
That kind of squares off that area being all of that the church has in that location.
Okay. But the access to those, are people walking from the church over to these buildings to
Right.
use them? I guess my only thought or concern would just be, at what point do we say, that corner's enough and we shouldn't go any further into the neighborhood? Or I just think probably if I was looking at another organization that wanted to buy single-family homes on a street and use them for something other than that, I would probably just question it. But is it part of a long-term, plan, campus plan, or
An
what?
expansion plan for the church?
Yes.
No, sir.
No.
They do have recreation areas in the back, those backyards, and open them in there. They have a place, because if you look at the rest of the site, they don't have any green space. It's all parking space and/or street frontage, and that creates a location for them to have green space. Don't y'all have some kind of a,
Fellowships
do you have volleyball court or something back there?
We-
Yeah. That, I mean, that opens that up to have a recreational area for the church that they wouldn't have otherwise too.
Yeah, I just thought you know,
Yeah, there
it's
is a
one of those
question, how
things
much
where
further
if
do
we
you
look
go?
at, you know, if it was another type of organization that was doing that, I think it would probably get some questions about it because, you know, I just don't know at what point we say that's good, or do we get to continue all the way up Elmdale Drive? I mean, I just, that's my question. I was trying to figure out what the long-term.
We have no long-term plan to buy any houses at this point.
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, so which houses, so 1707, 1705, and 1706?
Lots 9 and 10 are on Ross Avenue, which are behind the properties that we own, and then Lot 19 is on Huntsville, and that's,
But they own the two between it and the church.
and
That will
they're-
complete that whole block area
Right.
that they will own in there.
because we own the houses next to that and the corner up there.
And I think what I'm looking at is a church can be adjacent to a residential neighborhood. A school can be in a residential neighborhood. It's not like we're putting something into a neighborhood that isn't, I mean, look at churches all over town. That's where they're located.
And the
isn't it?
main campus is, right? I mean, that's my only thing, is that the main campus is, by definition, it's got enough parking, what Patsy read, right? It's on a major street, it's got plenty of parking. These individual parcels are not.
We also own
So
the
if it
parking
was-
lot across the street, excuse me.
Oh, yes, the parking lot, right. So I was just thinking, if it was a PUD, if it was all together, you know, would you mind just reading what can be in a P1? Because at some point, just like every rezoning request we have to think about, we're rezoning it, the church may decide to raise some money at some point, sell these houses. If what's in a P1, you know, we have to be comfortable with what could be there if Elmdale Baptist Church didn't own that property, right?
understand.
So I just want to get it on the record.
I mean, and then also, can the structures be changed without like having to come back?
To be used for classroom space or something like that?
Or, I mean,
Okay, let me tell you what can go in a P1 district. Citywide public uses by right, cultural, recreational, and health facilities, institutional facilities, temporary classrooms, church, synagogue, or a healthcare clinic. That's the only things that can go into a P1 by right.
so, I mean, it could become a clinic.
Or it could become temporary classrooms, because I do know they use some of those along Huntsville as temporary classrooms too.
So, right now, when we're changing this, it's still coming from the church.
Right.
So if they were to pull that off, would someone else be able to take one of those houses and now have
Well,
access
if they're gonna take the
off of
houses down, they're
Ross?
gonna have to come in with a large-scale development plan and show how they're going to, what they intend to do with that. If the church was going to expand and use that for another facility or something, they'd have to do a large-scale development plan for that portion right there, and then we'd look at how they access it too.
Well, yeah, but I think maybe what I'm understanding Peyton's concern is if they were to sell, let's say 1705, because it's a big one, to a different church, but now they don't have access.
Well, they could have, I guess in essence, they could have access on there if they're going to convert it to a church with a separate ownership.
But they'd have to have parking, which there isn't parking, so the lack of parking is gonna, I think,
Aaron?
that from happening.
Yeah, so usually you have your two options. You can go to the P1 and they can do it by right, or in a zoning district like this, it's usually a conditional use required or something of that nature when it's a different zone, which you know the differences between the two. But yes, I mean, Peyton is right. If the church chose to go a different direction, and this is just because you asked the question, they could do anything in the institutional land zone like that they wanted to. So it could be any of those number of those, so.
Right. I was just trying,
Is SF2, they can't use it for church facilities, because
Right.
churches aren't allowed in SF2.
yeah, I was just trying to think if there was maybe a better solution than just completely rezoning it, so that you could still use it, but that there was a backstop almost, that if
No, I mean,
plans changed in the future, you know,
Your point is taken with institutional. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a different amount of uses that have to come in there, and that is not fully a church or something of that nature. It
Right.
could be any number of uses that are on there listed.
Recreational
so-
facilities could be a lot of
Yeah.
different things, so I just.
Well, but it also says in a P1 zone, let me read you the title of it too. That was just the uses itself. The P1 institutional district is designed to protect and facilitate use of properties owned by large public institutions and church-related organizations.
Mhm.
I mean, they could use, as I asked, a couple of the houses as residential houses for traveling missionaries or pastors or something, and still use it as a residential use too.
That's what, yeah, because then if that was the case, right, if it was a pastoral home or something, we wouldn't need to
Right.
rezone it at all.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you know, that's just, I was just.
We
you know.
don't really have anything that allows that, except for a P1 zone, to give them that ability to use both of those.
Well, just the freedom to do it without coming to ask the planning commission whether or not they can do it. And like Patsy said, since the conditional use is not set up in the framework of SF2, that would be something that y'all would have to discuss maybe at the work session or something of that nature.
Yeah.
If you're saying that you would maybe hinting that you would like a little more control in the way the land use is established with institutional.
I just want to look at it the same way I think we'd look at any other, you know, kind of expansion into.
Just that it's set to just institutional uses. Can't be any other kind of commercial uses that's not related to the church or a school. And there is a school adjacent to it too. I mean, you know, that's Huntsville School too.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? This be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Parsley,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
No.
This passes 7-2.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 24th.
24th. Thank you, ma'am.
Next item on the agenda, R 19-27, Canode Management LLC, parcels 21-00171-114 and 21-00171-112 from A1 to C2, presented by Harrison French and Associates.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Carrera with Harrison French and Associates. We're asking for a rezone of the highlighted area from A1 to C2. Can answer any questions about that.
Okay, but you are restricting it to which tract? Because the parcel numbers that you put on here are very disconnected, so which tract are we bringing this down to?
So it's parcel number 21-00171-112.
Only that tract, because
Correct.
there appears to be some kind of a gap in the legal description, and before you try to rezone that piece, you'll come back with something to correct that one, correct?
Yeah, I guess there's a deed gap, so we've just decided to eliminate that from our request at this time.
Okay, so their request is being reduced down, and it's 0.24 acres of that tract on there because there is a deed gap. That's all we're rezoning with this one, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies. The comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Improve the city's economic base and tax structures through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations, encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the residents and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Rezoning passes 9-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 24th.
Thank you.
Next item, conditional use C 19-16, Indian Daba, Northwest Arkansas, 205 East Johnson, use unit 4, mobile vending in neighborhoods, center type 2, presented by J.S. Ramnani.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jayesh. I am here with my wife, Krishna Verma. I would like to thank you for giving me opportunity to come and present my case. We are the owners of Indian Dhaba NWA. A year ago, we started this food truck in Bentonville, Arkansas, But if you see, my name is Indian Dhaba NWA, so we want to cover not only Benton County but also Washington County, and there is no other better place but to start right next to the city council over here. So that's why we are coming right across the street from here. If we get approval today, we will be able to open exactly a year after we started our first one. That was 2nd October 2018. So we are requesting approval to bring a new taste bud in the city of Springdale.
Thank you. Staff comments?
And we already had a second food truck approved for this location. They relocated or may not be in business, so this is the same location. The ingress and egress is acceptable. The off-street parking is acceptable. They indicate their refuge and service areas will be acceptable. Utilities, there's no screening, and I'm assuming the only sign you have will be on the truck itself?
Yes.
The yard requirements are acceptable, the size and shape of the site is acceptable. It's generally compatible with the following conditions. May not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. The health certificate is required. Display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulator signs. No vending upon a public way. No sound device that produces a loud and raucous noise in violation of the city ordinance or violate any other city ordinances in connection with the vending operation. The site is to remain clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of the business, with all trash and debris accumulating within 20 feet of any vending stand to be collected and deposited into a trash container. It addresses the vision set forth in the adopted downtown master street plan and capitalizes on public investment in existing infrastructure and ensures complementary relationships with surrounding neighborhoods.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Additional use passes 9-0.
Thank you.
You will need to come to the city clerk's office and get your business license, okay? You have to come back on the 24th, yes. The council, we'll do the resolution, goes to council on the 24th, that you get your business license after that. So you could shoot for that October 2nd, okay.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Next item, preliminary plat 19-02, Clayton Street Business Park, north of Sunset Avenue, end of Clayton on east side, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. We've been working on this for a couple of years, and we're asking for approval for the revised plat, preliminary plat.
Staff comments?
Street names will need to be provided and approved prior to final plat acceptance. The street width needs to comply with the master street plan design width requirements. The length of the dead-end cul-de-sac does not meet ordinance for maximum allowed length and will need a secondary entrance. All comments from utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval. The only engineering question I see is increases in peak flow need to be calculated on the basis of the development area, not the entire drainage basin. Have you worked with engineering to get that stuff, the drainage report cleaned up?
I'm not sure.
Are you detaining on site?
Not at this
Are
time.
you doing
no.
everything that goes to the creek?
Correct. And as far as the master street plan, we're proposing a private street for this project.
But you have to have an approved private street to be able to divide it into lots.
Correct.
So is it gonna meet the design width requirements, or? I mean, the only difference is the city doesn't take it over for maintenance, it's the same requirements, and the length does not meet our ordinance maximum for a cul-de-sac. It's longer than it should be, and it only has one access point.
Well, this was approved 2 years ago. We've worked through these issues, I believe. I worked out the issues with fire. We don't have any restricted access from a fire standpoint. I understand the length of cul-de-sac.
Well, our master street plan sets a maximum length of cul-de-sac.
I thought that was for a public street, not a private street. Maybe that's where That's how we responded to the comment, so maybe that was my misunderstanding.
So do you have a POA that's gonna maintain it? Because you show as the lot's not owned to the center of the street.
They do go, or do not? I'm sorry.
Repeat that
not.
again.
Okay, can you, Aaron, can you go back to that drawing? So each property owner, each lot will own to the center of the street, and you will have a POA that maintains that?
Yes.
Wayne, do you have any fire comments?
We looked at it, it's 2,300 feet to Sunset. The special approval by the fire chief will be that all buildings will be sprinkled down that particular part of the subdivision. Was the deal that he was agreeing to at the time.
Is that note on the plat?
I don't know if it is or not, I just saw this the other day and I hadn't had a chance to review it.
It was not on the plat at the time that we resubmitted, but it will be.
It's not on the one that you resubmitted?
Correct, because I had this discussion with fire after we resubmitted the plans.
So all lots will be, but repeat that again, what you said, Dwayne.
No matter the size of the building, all buildings will be fire sprinklered down that section of that street.
Okay.
And then I believe, Jason, are you still bringing in the water from McRae?
Yes.
Yeah, he's gonna loop the water in from McRae, which is gonna help the water in the whole area.
Okay. Aaron?
So that'll mean every building, regardless of square footage, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
regardless of square footage.
So typically, it's depending on the type and the size. Like, I think it's 12,000 type 2 or
It
something.
depends on the occupancy.
Yeah.
It depends on the size, and of course, the water flow depends on the classification
Right.
of the construction material.
So he's saying regardless of what type of building, what use, it's gonna have to be sprinkled, so.
That's why I asked that to be repeated again on there.
And
Okay.
it needs to be a note
making
on
sure
the
we got
plat
that.
itself.
Yeah, so Jason, you'll resubmit a new plat with that notation on there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the master street plan says, maximum length of dead-end streets shall not exceed 800 feet or provide access to more than 30 dwelling units.
But what they're saying is that the agreement in lieu of that is sprinkling every one of them.
Well, that's not based on fire code any, totally, but, okay. Will be a private street, not subject to asking for the city to take it over sometime in the future, right?
So I believe there's two different parts of this. Like the first, I can't see it from here, but 300 feet is public, and then the rest of it is private. I can't.
So
The piece that comes off Clayton currently,
the piece that comes off of Clayton, not to exceed 800 feet, will be a public street.
right,
From there on, it would be a private street, is what you're saying.
yes.
And so does the buildings that are beyond, I mean, in that public street up to 800 feet, they have to be sprinklered too?
That's my understanding, yes.
I don't know that the plat reflects that.
The-
Does it show the, where
It
the?
shows public. All the way up to basically.
Just to the end of the first lot? The first
Yes.
lot's right there.
That's notated as public right there.
Yeah, and then that's where it breaks.
And the rest of it is, well, so it's not 800 feet. It's a shorter amount of public street up to there.
Correct, yes.
Are you doing curb, gutter, and sidewalks on the private portion?
Yes.
That would leave us with a public street without a turnaround.
Yep, it does.
Are we good to proceed with this, or it seems like there's a lot in question?
Well, we're just discussing what they're asking for. They're asking for a preliminary plat that allows those things to happen.
Okay.
That's been previously approved as well.
How long ago was that? Because I didn't find it.
I think it was in
And
16.
did you ever submit construction plans for it?
No,
We ever get that far?
no.
No, we never got that far. Okay.
I think it was approved, and then we got a one-year extension, and then we're back to a point where that's expired, and we're back asking for the preliminary plat.
Jason, why is the first 300 feet public? Why would it just not all be private?
Because we don't own all that property. So we bought one of the lots from Mr. Ferguson, and then he held I think he held the lot that's in the middle there. I can't,
Lot 8 that's
the
kind
first
of
north
surrounded.
lot, yeah. So we don't have all that property, so that's why that portion of it's public. We had to get an access easement or a right-of-way for that piece of property to get into the site.
He doesn't want to be part of having to maintain that, I guess.
Right. And the piece, when it was purchased, was landlocked. It had access to McRae on the north side. It was,
Right,
it was one
across the
piece.
creek.
Right.
It's an interesting location. Basically, you got a lot of lots off of one access point off of 412.
Any other comments? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Okay, so now the staff comments would be, it would be public street up to where it's shown on the plat. The rest of it would be private street, curb, gutter, sidewalk on the entire thing. The portion, the public would have to be built to city standards. And the private street would have to be curb, gutter, and sidewalk on that portion as well.
This would be a motion, correct?
This is a,
Recommendation.
yeah, a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Covert,
Second.
second by Mrs. Haney.
Parsley,
No?
Peters,
Yes.
oops, he's not here anymore. Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
No.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
No.
Haney,
No.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
It's 4-4. This does not pass.
5-4.
5 yes.
5-4, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
It
Next
may-
item, large scale, L17-11, South Coast Baking, north of Sunset Avenue, west side of 40th Street, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Jason Apple with ESI. We submitted this project back in 17, an expansion for their current facility. Got a one-year extension. We went through full construction plans with this project, got approved construction plans, and they just didn't move forward.
And the reason it's back on the table again, because they did come in and ask for an extension, and we are bringing it back to you with a recommendation that we move it forward just like it was approved the last time. And I think different, but we didn't want to just stamp it and go on because it had lapsed, and that's really why it's here. So it's really, this is a motion to reapprove or to, I don't know what you want to call it. It's previously approved and allow it to continue is really what it is.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Motion to approve staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney,
Second.
second by Mr. Covert.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes. Large scale passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Board of Adjustment B 19-42, Barry and Rhonda Leonards, 2368 Surrey Lane, variance for deviation of rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, presented by Barry or Rhonda Leonard.
Thank you for your time. My name is Barry Leonard. I'm here with my wife, Rhonda. We are asking for a variance for deviation of rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. Basically, we want to put a pool in our backyard and need a little more space. We've contacted all the neighbors around us, both with a required letter and verbally, and no one has an issue with it. So that's all we're asking for is
Is there
10
an
more feet.
easement on the back, on the rear of your property?
Is there an easement?
Is there a utility easement on the rear of the property?
There is in the corner, in the northwest corner. The lines are in there.
What lot number is it? So there's a 10-foot utility easement across the back where you're putting it back there. So you're having it, the setback reduced down to the existing easement.
Yes, from 20 to 10.
Any additional staff comments? Okay, any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley, Peters.
Yes.
Variance passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item B, 19-43, Greg Spencer, 207 West Emma, variance for deviation of paved parking requirement with a 2-year bill of assurance presented by Greg Spencer.
This is a property I've owned for 20-something years. When the improvements to Emma and downtown came into effect, the requirement for paving got more obvious. You can see from the drawing, my lot's been used as an alley from Emma to the back side to get out to Meadow and Blair. I am asking for some time to get this done. The reason being, I'm going to have to engineer this, get somebody to engineer it for me. The drainage through there works right now through the trail that's been cut. If I pave this, it could get in my office pretty quick for my building. I don't use it anymore. So I need to figure out how to keep that from happening, and then, do the paving on it. My intentions right now, as soon as possible, I'm gonna close that alley off, keep the driveway through there, and limit parking to the east side of my building, and just go from there. As soon as I can get it engineered and save my pennies to do the paving, I intend to do that.
Staff comments?
With the new form-based code, he's not required to have any downtown, any off-street parking for this business because it's not more than 7,500 square feet. But if you can't park on the grass, if you're going to park on that lot. If he wants to park on that lot and have off-street parking, it needs to be paved. And I think what brought this to our attention is there were cars pulled up to the east side of the building with this new renter. You haven't been parking on that up until you got this new renters, right?
No, we used the east side of the building for parking for years.
Okay, well,
I parked in that first slot on Emma Street for 12 years.
I guess my question is why 2 years bill of assurance? Can you have, what's your intentions of housing to have it designed so that you can start moving toward getting that done?
Well, the reason for the 2 years is because you suggested I get 2 years.
Well, that's what we do is 2 years.
Yeah.
We haven't done any more than 2 years.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I
Yeah.
appreciate at least some time.
Do you intend to
get things-
pave the back portion of it too?
No, I do
or
not.
Just enough spaces on the side, and this is a little bit deceiving because it appears you don't have an access off of Emma Street to get to your piece of property. That driveway that exists now where you pull in is really not on your property. Do you have an access easement from them?
No, that's not the case. My property runs to the side of the building on the east.
Okay, so it actually goes
The lip
over.
on their brick on that east side, or their west side, is on my property.
But that still doesn't get into that existing drive.
If you look at the, that building on the east side of my property, and it runs straight to Emma Street.
Okay, that, you know,
That is my access. I own that lot there too.
it's up to you guys.
Any other comments? Any questions or comments from the audience?
So just this wouldn't be an issue if he wasn't parking.
If he wasn't parking on the grass, it wouldn't be an issue, because he doesn't have to have off-street parking. But if he's going to use off-street parking, it has to be paved.
You're saying you've been, like, just so I'm clear, you said you've been parking on the,
I feel that the value of my building there as a rental property is increased by having off-street parking.
and again, why 2 years? Just because that was,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
again, I'm sorry, why 2 years? Just because that was just the,
Well, as Ms. Christie said, that's as long as I can get, and it's going to take that long for me to, as I said, get it engineered, planned, and paved. And this is a major expense that I had no plans for until about a month ago.
okay.
I'm guesstimating, and I didn't go measure after Ms. Christie told me the dimensions, and there will be, I believe I'm required to have a handicap spot, but there should be 5 slots on the side of the building, and then I'll cut it off right there.
Well, again, he's not required to have any spaces. He's saying how many he wants to put in. Because there is no off-street parking requirements for a building that size.
And it doesn't have to be a fully paved site because there's no requirements to actually be on there. So he could come in, and if he wanted to, sir, you could do permeable pavers, work with an engineer on doing that, some kind of design aesthetic like that for the 2 or 3 spots he needs. Because the more he paves, the more he's got to mitigate. And in an urban environment, that's going to be tough. So I'm just, you can come talk to staff and we'll try to, but you'll definitely need to get an engineer. But, I would offer up some solutions like that instead of paving the whole area. Just pave what you need to do. But just something to think about and work about. That's something we're going to come into like with more development in downtown, things we have to look at more often. So.
Yeah, given the pace of how things are going downtown, I'd be more in favor as far as a 1 year versus a 2 year. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't come back and get that extended again in that whole piece. But it helps as far as momentum. And what Aaron just presented is quite a few options as far as things that could happen in that whole piece. It's correct. If you desire, because it brings more value as far as your rental, off-street is a viable option in that whole piece. I think we're willing to work with you on that, but 2 years seems quite excessive, especially this area right here, and how fast things are moving in that
We've
piece.
seen, 3 cars is usually what's parked there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
3 cars is usually what's parked there?
Normally, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that was the original, and this came in as a code violation to neighborhood services. They were parking 3 cars on the side in the grass.
And keep in mind, if you do a 2 year, that means that there cannot be anything parked there.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
You could not park anything there if we had granted this 2 year extension, you still couldn't park there for that period of time, correct?
Well, he's asking for you to allow him to park there for 2 years before he gets it paved. That's what he's asking, is a variance for him to not have to pave it for 2 years
Okay.
and allow parking to
Sorry.
continue.
That even further, I think 2 years is excessive, but I'd be in favor of 1, but that's totally up to you. If you want us to vote on it as far as 2, we can. I'm just giving you an option on that too.
Well, let me ask you this, if I say let's do 2 and y'all vote it down, does it have to be done immediately? Because that's not going to happen. I want to be perfectly honest. I can't afford to do the paving and everything. If I have up to 2 years, during that time, I can.
Sorry, I was confusing things earlier. If it was voted down, then that you could not park there in that whole piece. You would be restricted from that.
Okay.
But 1 year is an option as well, so.
So something that has been done in the past is that when we've given the 1 year, and then if you come back and show good faith that you've got the plans done and you've got
Okay.
something put
That's fine.
aside ready, then it's a lot easier to say, okay, now you actually know what your actual timeline is, rather than leave it so broad and then you come back in 2 years and possibly haven't done anything.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that, because this is something that has to be done. I'm not arguing with the ordinance or anything else. I need to do it. I just need some time to figure out what to do, what works best, and go from there.
So would you be willing to reduce your request to a 1-year bill of assurance? And then if you can't make it in that 1 year, you'd have to come back and get it renewed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the request is now for a variance for parking for 1 year, not 2.
Can you just really quickly remind us what usually would trigger parking needing to be paved?
If you
In
park
the
on the
rest,
grass,
in the rest of the city?
if you park in the grass, it has to be paved.
And understand that we were parking on gravel,
Yeah,
but
so
it's
that's the
grown
thing,
up.
yeah, it's
So-
gravel, it's not really, I mean, part of it's gravel, not really grass, right? So I'm just saying, normally, in the rest of the city, what would constitute or trigger parking needing to be paved, whether it's gravel, whatever?
It would be anytime a business license change, any parking on the grass, any gravel, any unpaved
You
surfaces.
said anytime the business license changes.
Right, yeah,
So,
'cause-
Because
for
they went
it
and
to-
looked at it, yeah.
So, I mean, I get the whole thing about the downtown code, but all over the city, anytime there's a business license change,
Yeah.
we require the parking to be paved. So over
Right.
the course of 20 years,
A lot of times our code enforcement is based off of complaints, so we don't
Right.
see a lot of complaints come in on parking on the grass unless they're in heavy residential areas. And and you're allowed to park on the grass to the left of your driveway in one instance, as long as you don't do ruts. You don't see a lot of these come in unless it's a business license change. It's just, this one, I think, was it from a code enforcement report?
It was a code,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what, yeah, so.
Came in from a complaint about, because there hadn't been people parking in that area. The previous renter you had didn't use it on a regular basis, when they had the furniture shop in there.
There was usually somebody there, but
Nobody
I
caught
have
it
a
then.
new tenant who had a new business license in the last 6 months, so.
And there seems to be more people parking on the side of some, I can't
Well,
tell
they're
you
more
how.
successful, so.
Yeah,
thank goodness.
somebody noticed it, and, there's a lot of activity in downtown. A lot of people noticing what's going on downtown too, so. So you're asking for a variance for deviation of paved parking requirements for a 1 year, with a 1 year bill of assurance? Okay?
Any other questions or comments?
Call for the vote?
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Compton,
Yes.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Variance passes 9-0.
You need to come by the office, we need to
Oh,
get
yeah.
you a bill of assurance.
Thank you.
I
Okay?
appreciate your flexibility on that. And Aaron, do we have visual examples for him as far as pavers and things like that? Okay. I think he just needs,
Quality time, yeah, they're doing
yeah.
great.
So they'll help you with that.
Thank you. I
Okay?
appreciate it.
Thank you. Next section is waivers. Guadalupe Garcia, W19-04, 302 West Edmondson, waiver sidewalk requirement with a 2-year bill of assurance presented by Guadalupe Garcia.
Hi, maybe Rahit, I'm just here for interpreting for him.
Okay.
Si fuera posible de no construir la banqueta porque tengo un ditch enfrente y para hacer la banqueta para mí pienso que es un problema porque tengo que poner mucha pipa, enterrarla y aparte de eso no tengo ninguno de los vecinos que tienen banqueta y
Okay, he's asking for a waiver on his sidewalk because none of his neighbors have a sidewalk, and he has a dish in the front of his property, and I'm not sure qué tiene un dish tiene que viene siendo eso.
por donde corre el agua enfrente.
Okay, let me ask a question. Is he building a new structure there?
¿Está haciendo un nuevo edificio entonces? Yes, he is.
Okay, it was a vacant lot before, and he's building a new house.
Antes estaba el lote vacío y ahora está haciendo una nueva casa? Yes, it was a vacant lot.
Okay, so the reason he's coming and the requirement to do the sidewalk is because he's building a new house at that location. Okay.
Está requiriendo hacer eso, dice, porque está haciendo una nueva casa en su locación. Ahí, ¿verdad?
How wide is the lot?
¿Qué tan ancho es el lote?
Aproximadamente entre 90 y 100 pies.
90 and 100 feet between.
Would he be willing to make payment in lieu of the sidewalk? And then when and if the city puts a sidewalk in there, that money would be used and it would be finished? Would he be willing to do that?
Si usted estaría dispuesto a hacer un pago para poder detener un poco el proceso ahorita de lo que va a hacer cuando le requiera la ciudad, luego hacerlo. He doesn't understand. He says, how would that work?
He would make a payment to the city. The city would put it in an escrow account and hold that amount until a bigger project is undertaken to put more sidewalk in than just his.
Entonces dice que lo que haría es poner una cantidad y se va a ir a un fondo donde ese dinero va a estar en ese fondo y cuando hayan suficientes personas que van a hacer ya su andadera, entonces ahí es donde lo van a comenzar a hacer.
Si las otras personas lo hacen, yo tendría que hacerlo, pero si no...
Yeah, he says if others are willing to do it, that he would be willing also to do it.
I'm sorry, he said what?
If other residents will be willing, then he
Well-
would also.
The other residents aren't brought into this at this location because they're not building a new house. The fact that he is building a new house requires him to build a sidewalk.
La razón es de que si ellos ahorita no son los que están construyendo una casa nueva, solamente usted es el que está construyendo. Who would he be connected, who would he be building this with, along with, he said?
If he pays for the sidewalk,
Si paga
he
por
is
el-
giving the money to the city, and the city would be taking on the project to do bigger than just his lot sometime in the future.
Ok, lo que sucede es que en el futuro usted le va a estar pagando esta cantidad a la ciudad y cuando luego venga un proyecto que la ciudad va a construir algo, se va a aplicar a en ese tiempo.
If we do a bill of assurance,
Se hace un bill de esto, de aseguranza,
the
un
lien on the
seguro,
property,
y le van a poner en su propiedad
he has to
una
build it within
fianza.
whatever the length of the bill of assurance, and he asks for 2 years. That means he has to build it within 2 years.
Dice que entonces lo pudieran como una línea en su propiedad y usted tendría 2 años para poder hacerlo. Okay, then it's okay with him. ¿Cuál parte está de acuerdo?
He can either leave it as is,
¿Lo puede
or
dejar como está, dice?
he can do payment in lieu of.
¿O puede ser un pago para absorber eso?
¿Y de los pagos, cómo le tengo que pagar a la ciudad para que ellos lo hagan o lo tengo que hacer yo?
He says he would need to pay the city to build it, or he would have to build it, is his question.
Okay.
If he does it the way it is right now, he would have to build it within 2 years.
Okay, so
If he
it's-
does payment in lieu of, the money just sits in an account, and he's already paid for his portion.
Ok, dice que si usted pone el dinero, va a ir nomás en una cuenta y usted ya pagó la parte que la ciudad le requiere. Si va por esa forma, y si no, usted lo tiene que construir ahora desde el principio.
And just for clarification, the city would be telling him an amount based on the square footage, and that's how he would determine the total amount he had to pay,
Dice,
whatever that is, however long the sidewalk is, just so he knows that's what he would be.
lo que vendiera pagando sería que la ciudad va a medir qué tanta cantidad es la que usted necesita y entonces le van a decir cuál sería el costo de eso y así es como le van a avisar cuál es la cantidad que va a poner.
No, pero yo tengo que pagarle al 100% a la ciudad todo.
So he would have to pay 100% to the city of that
Yeah, Pat-
estimate?
Patsy, let me ask, I mean, because he says there's a, forgive me, because I didn't get to see this property. Apparently there's a ditch in front of this one here. If there was done payment in lieu of, I mean, it's a flat
Just-
fee.
Yeah, it's a flat fee, right.
And that whole piece on it. I mean, depending on what he would have to do as far as redoing drainage and doing that himself, I mean, there's potential you're gonna run into more expense if you do it yourself on that one, so.
Si usted lo hace, dice, por usted mismo, ¿verdad? En realidad va a haber otros costos que se van a ver incluidos ahí, aún con todo lo que pasa de los servicios. Um, he's asking in regards to there is a ditch on the side of the road, and when the easements are made, or when the drainage would come to this point, he says, what would happen then? Will he need to build something there, or?
If he builds it himself, he will have to build it where it doesn't affect the drainage.
Si usted mismo lo hace, lo va a tener que hacer para evitar el drenaje.
If it becomes a city
Si es un
project,
proyecto de la ciudad,
we'd be designing, we'd be doing the drainage at the same time.
ellos lo van a diseñar y van a hacer el drenaje al mismo tiempo. Yeah, he is not sure what would be his best option, so.
Is he trying to get a C of O for his house?
Lo que trata de agarrar es un permiso para vivir en su casa, es lo que está tratando de agarrar. Yes, because he's done with the house and he would like to occupy it.
Okay, the other option is to post a bond. He could get the C of O, and then we can work out whether he wants to do the other, if he wants to do that.
Dice, la otra opción que tiene es que puede pagar como un bono para que le puedan permitir entrar.
Is that right up there?
¿Lo quiere hacer el bono?
No, there's not.
He would like to pay the bond. he said.
Patsy?
Sorry.
Let's see, bond.
He would like to pay the bond, he said.
Okay, tell him to come by the office tomorrow, we'll work that out.
Okay, entonces venga mañana
Then we
por
can
la
figure out
oficina,
which
van a
is the way he
trabajar
wants to
eso,
do it, yeah.
Y entonces le van a decir de qué manera pueden hacer eso,
So he can get a C of O and move in the house, and we'll go from there.
para que así pueda agarrar
So we don't
ese
need to hear
dinero
this.
para que se pueda ocupar la casa.
One or the other, we don't have to.
So we don't have to vote on this one at all? Okay,
Not right now, anyway.
all right. So we're gonna go the bond route on there, so, okay. And he knows to come by the
Y
office.
usted sabe que debe venir por la oficina, ¿verdad? Yes. He says yes.
All right, thank you.
Gracias.
Yeah, come up to the mic if you would, please. State your name and address, please.
My name is Larry Wayne Stubbs, and I live at 304 West Edmondson, just to the west of this place. I used to own the lot that this man is building a house on. I want to ask this. Is the city planning on building sidewalks on Edmondson Street, Terry Street, and what's the other one? Oaklawn.
Today, we don't have any plans to build it anytime soon.
Well, why should this man have to pay for a sidewalk across there? Because he built a new house?
The ordinance says when a new house is constructed, they're required to do the sidewalk.
Well, if you look at this block, maybe if you have a street view, you can see my house, there's no sidewalk. You see his house, there's going to be a sidewalk. And then you see the next house, there's no sidewalk. I've talked to 3 of my other neighbors, and they feel the same way I do. The gentleman, this really doesn't need a sidewalk. Now, you were talking about drainage. Edmondson down on the end has some drainage that's covered up with culverts. Up on our end, it does not. Another question, are you guys going to put drainage in there? Are you going to make me pay for it when you put it in?
Again, I'll say we don't have any plans to do any improvements drainage-wise. The Public Works Department picks up drainage when there's issues that need to be taken care of.
Yes, ma'am.
Usually, it's not, you're asking me to say, is it never gonna happen? I can't say that's never gonna happen, but
Yeah.
do you have any areas
I can
where
tell you-
houses get water in them from the drainage?
No, ma'am, no.
Okay.
But we
Those are
do have-
usually the ones that are
We do have a
taken care of
ditch right
first.
there, and it does cross his driveway, and he'll have to have a sidewalk on the other side of that ditch. And my wife and I are both concerned about drainage.
People walk down that street to school or are using
They
in
walk,
the
they
in the
walk down
middle of the
every day,
street?
every day. They walk up and down it. Matter of
That-
fact, if you
that's-
look at Edmondson there, that's the little calm spot in between Oaklawn and Terry. no sidewalks, but we can walk up and down the road without getting run over. Now, you get over on Terry, you get over on Oak Lawn, different story. And they all end with a new addition that's immediately west to us. I think, right there at Diana. And then from Diana all the way to Turner, there's no sidewalks on Terry, Oak Lawn, or Edmondson.
I will say for, and I'm just speaking for myself here, that this is something that we deal with frequently. I think for me, it's a point of frustration a lot of times because, do you make that property owner have to pay for the sidewalk? And to his original question, well, if everybody on the street, agrees, then maybe we do.
Build a new house. I know the ordinance, but still.
So, but then I would just say, your council members can change the ordinance. This body can't, but, your point is taken, is what I want to let
Okay.
you know. But we don't really have a lot of
I
good.
just don't think it's fair to this gentleman. I just don't. And I've
Sure.
seen him put a lot of money and effort.
Sure.
I've seen him work hard. He works all day and then comes and works at night.
We just
to
don't
build
have a
this
lot of
house.
other good options to deal with this outside of.
Well, I'm concerned as a neighbor, and I don't want to be, give you any hard time or anything, but I'm just telling you, I think you're being unfair to this man.
Anybody want to entertain a motion to grant the full waiver,
I think today, someone builds a house, they have to put the sidewalk, and at some point it goes in. And I'm a person who walks a lot all over the city. And every block where there's even one or two houses with sidewalk gives me peace to get off onto the sidewalk.
ma'am, if you
So
will.
I'd prefer if he would put the sidewalk in, even if it's just one house length. And eventually, those houses
Well,
will build on that.
there were no, this is an old addition.
I understand
It's
that.
not a new addition. It's not a new place. I mean, I understand too. If you build a new place on a new house, you need a sidewalk.
And at some point, if the city comes in and puts sidewalks,
I don't see
then
that.
the city will end up paying the part that he should have paid, and
Yeah,
any
I understand.
homeowner building
I
today would have
understand
to
better than he
pay.
did about that. Yes, ma'am, I know what you're saying. But I think it's uncalled for. That's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next item, W 19-05, Da Vinci Construction Incorporated, 8327 La Scala. Waiver of sidewalk requirement presented by Brian Lehman.
Good evening. Here to request a waiver on the sidewalk requirement on the back side of the lot that butts up with Highway 112. The front side, which butts up to La Scala in the neighborhood, we will construct the sidewalk, per the requirements. But there's no other sidewalks on the 112 side. With the future expansions slated for Highway 112, I don't think it would have a long life on that, and there's really no foot traffic. It's wooded and sloped, so asking for a waiver on the sidewalk on Highway 112.
Staff comment?
And I have to agree with that. We have asked the highway department to put a 12-foot side path along the east side of 112 down through there as part of the design work for 112. And I don't know that they have a total alignment that's been set up yet, but the sidewalk would be done with the 112 project.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
I'll just make one comment very quickly, that this is an example actually of a road that we do plan on making improvements to, unlike Edmondson. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, we're not. It's a highway department project.
we're not, but
It's a state highway.
What would happen to the funds if a payment in lieu of was made?
I guess we'd have to transfer them to the highway department.
I mean, I'm not advocating, I'm not advocating for that because of it. I'm just pointing out,
And not having the full alignment of where this is gonna be yet, they kind of take some of the curves out. We don't know yet exactly. That final alignment is still through environmental review, and we have asked for that 12-foot side path to be part of the project itself, so.
But the city doesn't pay for that.
It's a 112, it's a highway department project.
I believe we've already waived properties like this before on 112.
On 112, up north we have, I know, and I think we've already done one in this subdivision too already, so. because of its being on 112. Different situation.
Call for the vote,
Must be a motion there.
or excuse me, motion.
Second.
Recommendation by Mr. Covert, second by Mrs. Haney.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Waiver passes 9-0.
Thank you.
And let's see, the last one was tabled on there. Planning Director report?
Work session for September the 17th. 5:30, does that work for everybody?
Okay.
I thought we would be working on the Master Street Plan, but I heard from the city engineer that he's not ready yet. So we will talk more about the definitions and the commercial trades and services for one, trying to look at how we need to divide that one up, and a couple other ones is what I have in mind for that work session. Anybody else, any other topics that anyone else want to bring up that we can get started on, let me know.
Maybe not a thing to focus on during work session, but, you know, we just did the revamped for variances, and, you know, where we can see very clearly what, this deal with the Clayton Street, I mean, I don't know what there were so many things that seemed to be out of the ordinary for a normal street, but yet there wasn't a way that was clearly presented, and I honestly don't know, you know, I voted yes because it was subject to staff comments and you have all your comments in there, but
Work
I
on
don't,
that too.
yeah.
The commercial design, or the commercial design standards are a little bit easier to lay out
Right.
for you. We'll work
Right.
on that too.
That's thought, thanks.
And keep in mind, we hadn't had a lot of subdivisions, and we're
No.
beginning to get more now. It's
No.
becoming more serious all the time.
Any other comments? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.